Dobrodošli na Descon 6 online od 27. do 31. oktobra.
Hi everyone, and welcome to our Descon 6.0 online edition. As you know, during COVID, we were thinking about postponing our in-person annual hackathon, but we have decided to go ahead. So I'd really like to welcome everyone for joining us this afternoon, evening, or morning, wherever you are. And thank you for taking time in your day to be with us today. And we wholeheartedly welcome you to this new format of our new current normal. It really means a lot to me that you are here, and the topics and ideas that we're exploring and we're going to be exposed to are, in my opinion, worth sharing and thinking about. So in other words, glad to see that people are still joining and in big numbers, and that we are going to build our community. Briefly, my name is Desire Željka Milosevic, and I'm a founder of Descon, which is an annual technology and ecology hackathon taking place in Belgrade, usually once a year. And we are now online in real life, but because we have a lot of international guests and we have a lot of local and international presenters, as usual, we will speak in English. I can also address the audience in Serbian or Serbo-Croat. Dobro večer svima. So I'm a co-founder also of Open Data Initiative called Air to the People that grew out of the necessity to monitor the quality of air in Serbia. And luckily that the reason why we set up this online initiative was that we had a really good invention that took place a couple of years ago at Descon. We have invented a little device called Klimerko. So there'll be a whole separate workshop dedicated to that at the end of the week. And I hope if you can join us, at least we'll be streaming that event as well. So just to finish, introduction and tell you why do we do this. I also sit on the Open Rights Advisory Council in the UK, as well as Share Foundation here in Serbia, because they're both organizations that deal with the protection of personal data and digital rights. And you'll see that at Descon we do care about your privacy, and we have gone through a lot of hurdle to set up this big blue button server in order not to use Zoom. And so far, I'm glad it's working. So the why do we do this? I think that's the real question. And the reason I'm organizing is that we are worried about our environment, and we all gather here together to find ways to make things better. I think this year our topic is sustainability and low tech. And we'd really like to question, how do we think about these things? How are we going to act, and what are we going to do to design our future better? And what are we going to do about the energy sources, and how are we going to look after our planet? Descon has turned into an ecology hackathon from the initially Internet of Things and security only hackathon. Because of the demand and the challenges that were becoming obvious to us that we're facing. So in addition to that, we have COVID and pollution and technology and the internet itself. It can help us a great deal with all of these challenges, but we need to change our thinking, I think, in a way, otherwise the impact that humans are having on the earth and ecology and its geography in the ecosystem is not going in the right direction. So I'll just take you through the program and why we've chosen this topic briefly, because using we think that using resources in a responsible way will not only help us to sustain our consumerism, but we really need to think how to innovate in mass, but not necessarily have a mass production of things. So this challenge, this will challenge us how to design, to think with less, and how to allow for this critical innovation. The scientists remind us that we all need to use even negative emissions now to reverse the process where our planet has gone through, to keep this, to reach the pledge that the world has made, to keep global warming below 2%. And we'll hear from Chris de Decker on Friday how he's running the web-powered solar website and web server, and how to make one of your own. And we will hear from later on from Joana Moll, who's our keynote, about her thinking how far we as humans have gone into ruining our planet, or what is really behind these screens that we're looking at, and she'll take you down that road. So I'll also maybe share an opinion from Professor Vladimir Jovanovic from Manchester University, who says there are approximately about 60 billion spam messages in a day. That doesn't count all the emails and cryptocurrencies and servers and everything else we do daily online. And if apparently there is some algorithm that says that that every single message is a single quantum of electric charge, and at least it utilizes 0.3 grams of carbon dioxide. So if you were to multiply that number of 50 billion spam messages only with 0.3 grams, you get to a number of some 118 million tons of carbon dioxide daily. And as I say, that does not include all the rest of the things that we use, and the energy sources that we use to run this precious network that we have built. And it actually makes us question what to do going forward. And so it's obvious that so far the climate change has been our biggest problem, and but we also, as an event, we'd like to connect people that are thinking about the future, and we'd like to expose them to new ideas. Hopefully some of the ideas you'll hear would be new to you. With that, I think I would just say that you can see at our program that we've lined up a great line of speakers, both local and presenters in both languages. And we'll have a little break before Joana Moll joins us at well, local time here is 5:30, 6:30, and so we have about 10 minutes before we go into to listen to her for her. We would like to give you an option to ask a question, and also we have a separate server node chat room if you experience any tech issues. But we also would like to say during the presentation, you can always make a comment in the chat room, and it would be very useful for the moderators if you start your comment with maybe a letter C and questions with a letter Q, so that we know if it's a question or a comment, and we hopefully read out all of those to the presenter. So we also like to thank a couple of our sponsors this year. That is online. This is .rs registry in Serbia, and as well as .me, a registry. So thank you very much. And lastly, in collaboration with the Electronic University, Electrical Engineering University here in Belgrade, we're doing a workshop on Saturday that will be streamed. But there's still few seats open if you wish to participate in person. You can come and build one of those air monitoring devices together. And Climerco, maybe you have seen some of them before. So we had fun over the last 5 years, and although it's hard to use this word in 2020, we hope that, I do hope that we'll enjoy our time this week from Tuesday to Saturday. And I really appreciate everyone showing up and participating and asking questions and sharing their ideas. Lastly, I'd like to thank all the volunteers and Descon team and Hack Club Belgrade and Internet Society of Belgrade for helping out turn this into this lovely evening. That's all for me. Maybe we'll listen to a few more beats and see you later.
Dobrodošli na Descon 6 online od 27. do 31. oktobra.
Hey, Joana. Lovely to see you. So we're back with you on time. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. And I'll just say a few words about your work and who you are for those who have registered late. And Joana Moll is an artist from Barcelona, and but she's also based in Berlin and also a researcher. And she really wonderfully explores all the post-capitalist narratives, and you will find out more work online from her, and it's easy to find her. But some of the things that she covers are internet materiality and surveillance and social profiling and interfaces. It would be really hard to mention everything that Joana does, but I hope you will be able to discover some ways of interacting and asking Joana some questions, which I'm sure will give us some more insights. The one thing that Joana has also set up is a hangar in Barcelona, and many of you might have visited or heard about that place. And she's also co-founder of the this critical interface politics research group at hangar. So with that, I give the floor back to you, Joana. And if people wish to switch on the cams, I think that was one of the things we asked. Please do.
I appreciate that, because otherwise it's very weird. Well, anyway, Des, thanks a lot for the invitation, also for the effort of taking everything online, because I know it's quite a production. So, hey, hello. Well, not you, but your friends. Come on, I'm gonna. Now it's Ollie and Vladan. We know each other for quite some time. So anyway, thanks. And well, now I'm very happy to be here. I hope I could be in Belgrade, because I always enjoy myself a lot when I'm there. The food is great, so I'm quite sad it's not happening. And I hope that despite the situation, everybody there is great. Here in Spain is quite intense, I have to say again. But okay, so all this said, I'm going to start. So as Des said, my work really explore the way techno-capitalism is basically woven and intertwined with many other things, right? So I try to give sort of holistic approach to all the things that build current status quo when we talk about techno-capitalism, which also involved techno-colonialism, techno-patriarchy, and many other things. And of course, materiality is a huge part of it. Yeah. So I really like to start with this sentence. Every time I thought that Franco Berardi quoted this, but no, he quoted Bill Gates in a book that I read from Franco Berardi, and it says that power in the digital age is about making things easy. And this is something very important to keep in mind. And especially when we talk about cognitive capitalism, which is also, I think it's very important to put it in context. It has many names. Yeah, it's called techno-capitalism, or I don't know, necro-capitalism, surveillance capitalism. It has really different names. But I really like to use this one because I really think that it describes very well. So cognitive capitalism, basically, it's like the current economic system that we are basically interacting with, or it's like the economic social structure that we are producing within. Yeah. So it means that wealth is no longer produced exclusively by material goods, as you can say, but also wealth is being produced by exploiting all the capabilities of a human being. Yeah, it's meaning something that sort of intangible, like experience, like communication, I don't know, you name it, like many other things. Yeah, our interaction with the digital world, for example, is like an example of it, right? That everything that we do, it's turning into something that's quantifiable and then commodified. Yeah, and it's really important to keep this in mind, or at least to understand the economical context that we're operating in. So then I'm going to start with the cloud, and I feel for a lot of people that knows my work, it's very repetitive, but I think it's very important to keep pushing on this. These are part of some research we did with Vladan in 2017 on the materiality of basically with what we call it, like surveillance capitalism by then, right? We never really finished, but we have quite a long document. Anyway, we should do something with it at some point because it's there. So we have this idea of the cloud, right? And we've been told that the cloud is something that it's up there. Yeah, it basically defines the internet. And it's like this metaphor, which I think is quite ridiculous. It works very well in order to explain what the internet is not. Yeah, it's like a cloud, it's up in the sky, it doesn't pollute, it's almost celestial, and you look up, right? And the internet is really far from following this metaphor. It's like the exact opposite. It's down, it's underground, it's very heavy. Its materiality, it's really heavy and really evident. It's quite a mess. Yeah, and it has nothing to do with a holy cloud. Yeah. Oh, by the way, yesterday a student told me how much a cloud actually weighs, and I think it's like a regular cloud weighs around 63 elephants. So this metaphor, it doesn't really work, you know, if we really know this, but we don't tend to think as clouds as something that have like a very heavy weight. Anyway, I think like this metaphor really helps in terms of explaining to somebody that doesn't know the internet how to use it and how to interact with it without overwhelming users. But again, it's a metaphor that doesn't explain anything. Yeah, and this is a problem because then you find yourself interacting with systems that you are unable to understand because they're not properly explained or defined socially. Yeah. So these are some cables that are landing in New York. They're coming while they cross the Atlantic Sea. They connect Europe with America, and you can see it's really messy. There is also people in the internet, mostly men, as you will see. As you will see a lot of men, you will see very little women in these slides, because that's also, well, you know, like especially this, you know, you work in tech, you know how it is, right? So this is men-tailed mostly. Then, well, there's a little bit of history of how the internet came to be. I mean, it has a long history, but let's start with the telegraph. Let's cut it there. Yeah. So this is the first undersea cable that was placed. It was placed, I think, if I don't remember wrong, it's 1853 or 58. I think so. It connected the UK with the US. And why am I showing this? Because it's really interesting to understand how the infrastructures or the hubs that firstly build these infrastructures, they're still the hubs that retain most power. Yeah, like the UK and especially the US. And you will see with more contemporary maps of how the undersea cable world looks like. And this is, I think it's a beautiful picture. We also found it with Vladan in this research. And yeah, I mean, it's how they used to place the cables, which is not so different how they do it now. Now there is, of course, more sophisticated technology, but still, you know, you just take a boat and you just put cable down and then you somehow tie it to the land if you can. Well, that's a funny story also. So this first cable that you saw, it was operated by this technician in one of the sites in the UK site. He wasn't a technician, he was a surgeon, but he was an electrician by hobby. Yeah, and they just left him in charge of this cable. So how the undersea cables, how they used to work back then, you need to apply power from both sides in order for it to to allow like a current of electricity to flow and to be able to carry the message. So this guy just applied too much voltage and it burned the cable down. Yeah, so it's, well, I mean, it's just an anecdote which is funny. It says that this delayed the development of undersea or telecommunications technology for a few decades. Yeah. So this is a telegraph cable. I think it's from the beginning of the 20th century. And in terms of geopolitics, it's really interesting to see this because you see like sort of this technical geopolitical arrangement of cables. It's still very much present now. Yeah, this is like a current, pretty updated undersea cable map. I really recommend you to access a website. I cannot show it here because it's a little bit messy to switch presentations and browsers and so on, but an interactive undersea cable map, because then you can see all the companies that are being involved in the installation and operation of these cables, who owns what, the length of all the cables, and a lot of very interesting information. But I think it's important to understand is like in terms of geopolitics and communication, this hasn't changed much since the beginning or early technology of communication, right? And a lot of times we tend to forget this, and I think it's very, very important to make it evident. So coming to a materiality in the sense of exploiting nature. I think this is a great quote from Luis Mejias. I don't know, I know he's American. It's very hard for me to pronounce his name because I pronounce it in the Spanish way. But he's a very interesting scholar that is writing a lot about materiality of technology and so on. And in this quote, he refers to colonization of nature. Yeah, so he says to colonize the world, nature had to be framed as cheap, abundant, free, without honor. He refers to the modernist period, yeah, which is this period where basically the man was positioned on top of nature, and it was like this kind of philosophical idea, I'm not sure how to put this, that men had to dominate nature, yeah? And basically we can quote, and it went in parallel with the Enlightenment era and the development of modern Western science. So it's in this context. So nature was a mere residue that needed technology to be processed from its raw state to something valuable that could generate wealth. And well, I think this quote explains a lot of things. And then we see this. This is Impact Top 10. This was published at the end of 2017, if I'm not mistaken, by a Dutch researcher. She stated that sort of for the first time, or at least it was the first time I've seen it published, that the device industry was the most polluting in the world. Yeah, before the meat industry, housing, transportation, coffee, aviation, and so on. And at the beginning, it's shocking, right? Like how can it be? Because we don't tend to acknowledge like the digital life, it's so polluting. But the thing that we don't really acknowledge is all the agents that take part in or make possible all this digital life, which is endless. This I say very often in the talks I give, but the internet is the biggest, probably the biggest infrastructure that we ever built as humans, but it's the most invisible, and we don't tend to see it. I remember even when I teach, I always tell my students, like, okay, let's look for the router, and it's very, very hard to see it. And therefore, it's really hard to understand all the actors or this amazing complex maze of things that make the internet or allow the internet to exist. So therefore, it's really, really hard to understand that it has a major environmental impact. Yeah, and then, well, I mention Vladan all the time because he's here and I can see him. But in this text that we wrote and part of this research, we found out that an iPhone has more than 10,000 different parts. It was like this study that Apple disclosed how, I think it was iPhone 5 probably, and I think it was 5, 4, I don't remember. Well, some of these numbers, doesn't matter. Yeah, so they disclosed that an iPhone had more than 10,000 different parts that were coming from more than 700 different territories and were assembled by more than 300 pairs of hands. So we're talking about a really, really, really complex device. Plus, it has a mobile phone. It has more than a third of all the elements that we know. Yeah. And then when you start to think about this and you start to understand like all this global mobilization of resources that have to happen in order to build a single smartphone, you start to understand why devices are probably the most polluting industry in the world. There is something very much needed in devices and basically in most of the technology that we know, which is rare earth elements, which are very precious elements that what they allow, and this was starting to, of course, the US Army started to research about these elements, and then they realized that when it's sort of like the superfood of elements, right? So you can mix a little bit of these elements with, let's say, iron or other types of, I don't know, minerals or whatever, and they make these materials to behave or to enhance like these material properties. So basically, rare earth elements, what they allowed is to make increasingly smaller devices and more efficient, especially when it comes to communication technologies. Yeah. So those are some of them. They are not called rare because they are rare. I don't know. I don't really exactly understand this. I tried to understand it. I read a lot about it, but it didn't come with a rational explanation on why they are called rare earth elements. Anyway, they're really critical to the technologies that we use. And they're also very critical to build green technologies. And to extract all these minerals, it's far from being sustainable, which is also a great paradox. So and then you start to think what happened in Afghanistan and in many other territories and what's happening in Bolivia right now. So there is like this agency which is called U.S. Geological Survey Agency, which is a U.S. American agency which goes all around the globe to look for critical materials, yeah, and critical resources. So Afghanistan, it has one of the massive and high purity lithium deposits in the world, together with Bolivia and Salar de Uyuni, which I'm going to show. Yeah, and I remember that Afghanistan war was very publicly broadcasted, but it was very fastly shadowed by the Iraqi war, and suddenly we didn't talk anymore about this, right? And then also Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia, it has 50 to 70% of the world's lithium reserves, which is in the process to being extracted. I'm not sure if you know the recent events in Bolivia, like there was Evo Morales that was withdrawn, and there was elections, and this very liberal party won, and then they just celebrated elections again, and I think like the populist party came to life to be in power again. But there is like a lot of movement. Yeah, the lithium is a mineral that it's an element that it's very crucial to all the batteries that we use, as most of you might probably be aware. This is also one of the biggest mines for rare earth elements in the world. It's in Bayanova in China. It contains 70% of the world's reserve. And it's places that are highly inaccessible. Actually, these are one of the very few pictures that you can find about this mine. Well, Congo, same thing, like more than 60% of world supply of cobalt is mined in the copper belt. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, I think this is an issue that has been widely broadcast and discussed publicly. But the conditions of the miners there are very dramatic. There is a lot of people displaced. Militias are controlling these minerals, and also what in Congo and a lot of regions in Africa, there is also a lot of miners, which especially for what they mine gold and they extract gold. And what's happening, like all this trading system of minerals, it's really complex in the sense that you lose track of where things come from. A lot of times when companies are disclosing that, yeah, their minerals are 100% responsible and so on, there is like this sheet which is called CMRT, which is like the responsible mineral declaration sheet, where companies declare that their minerals are coming from a responsible and legitimate source. But what's happening here, there is a lot of minerals that are being extracted, especially in third world countries, and they're being laundered in other countries. Yeah, for example, Saudi Arabia, it's very well known, the Emirates, sorry. It's very well known for laundering gold, for example. So once it comes from there, then it's legitimate. But what's happening before that, nobody knows. And this is something that's still considered legal. So there is like a huge void over there. Also, like a very heavy process is the refining process, which you can read here in the slides. There's a lot of radioactive waste that is being generated to extract, to separate like all these minerals from the rocks and so on. And this is a very radioactive process. And you see this guy, this is in Bayanova, China as well, that he's not using any protection whatsoever. This is also a picture of a lake that it's adjacent. I never know how to pronounce this in English. It just right next to the refinery. It's where all the debris is going. So it is all radioactive waste. So it's a radioactive lake. Yeah. And well, this is the so-called negative externalities, right, of massive production of devices. Yeah, that mostly they're just ignored in the whole business model of the IT giants that run those operations at the end of the day. And this is this project that the Unknown Filthy. It is a British artist collective, which I really like. They have great works. And they went to this radioactive toxic lake, and they took some of the debris over there, and they built those 3 bases. So according to their findings, those 3 bases equal to the amount of radioactive waste that it takes to build a battery of a car, a laptop, and a smartphone. I saw it, like the big one, it's probably a meter or something. Yeah, so you make an idea of how big it is. It's quite impressive, actually. This picture, I really like it. Also, this from a Chilean photographer called Ignacio Acosta. And this is a picture of some ghost tree. It's eucalyptus that are placed next to the refineries, copper refineries in Chile, in order to suck all the radioactive waste. So you have like all these sort of, it's like slave trees and forests that are in charge of sucking up all these radioactive waste that is derived from the refining of copper. And then we have like all the layer. This is in the factory, it's Foxconn. It's one of the biggest producers of devices in the world. Like Apple was actively working with them. I'm not sure if that's the case anymore, but Samsung and many other big companies. Yeah, and you can see like, well, it looks like a chicken farm, really. Yeah, so that's all these 300 pairs of hands that we're talking about. You can understand when you see these pictures. Otherwise, it's really hard to acknowledge. Yeah, those are something that I always found very impressive. I remember when we talked about this in Vladan and we're doing all this research. For me, this is one of the most shocking pictures, because those are safety nets in the dorms of Foxconn, so to prevent suicide. Because a lot of people, obviously, they are experiencing depression, anxiety, and suicidal attempts. And then there is so many layers. I'm just gonna cover a few layers here because it's almost infinite. So there is also a transportation layer, which is critical to all these devices and basically like to a global economy at large. So what the transportation, like especially maritime transportation, allowed is basically to turn a world into a single factory. Yeah, because you can see, like what I was explaining, all these 700 different territories. You know, like all the things move from one place to another in massive chunks through shipping. How call it? Well, shipping activities, yeah, or boats or whatever. Yeah, also there is something that I found out recently with the project I'm doing right now. And there is a lot of trains that go straight from China to Europe. So there is trains that go from the east of China and they get to Madrid even. Yeah, so they cross like all these Euro-Asian continent, and basically this is cargo trains. And also they have direct trains to Duisburg, which is like the biggest entrance for Chinese goods in train in Europe. Then you go to London, but this is something very new. And it's something that it's also quite kept from the public eye. It's not something that it's very publicly shown. So then there is like all this plan. It's called the Chinese Belt, or the new Silk Road, that goes from China, and it covers all Eurasia and going to the most western part, Spain, and also it covers many parts of Africa. Yeah, so I didn't put a picture here, but also so. Yeah, well, this I'm going to skip. And then there's also all the part of e-waste. And this is just a part because this is the end user e-waste. There is a lot and massive waste in the production of devices, not just in the when it comes to extraction of raw minerals and refining raw minerals. It's also in the production process, which we won't have time to talk about it, but it's also like the end cycle of the devices, and where are all these things going. So in this case, this is I can't pronounce it, Avlokshire, which is in Ghana. It's a neighborhood next to Accra, which is the biggest e-dumpster, at least from Europe and Africa. I'm not sure about the world, but most of the European e-waste is going to this place. And back in 2017-18, on average, a European user could generate from 3 to 6 kilograms of technological waste per year, which is quite massive. And most of this is just happening there. It's going there. So, but it's not just about the physical part of the devices that is very polluting, and the materiality is more obvious, but where it's less obvious is when we talk about data. And this is something like I've been researching extensively in the last, since 2013. Yeah, so, this is estimate. And as I said before, the internet is such a huge infrastructure that it's impossible to determine its exact emissions. Yeah, so there is an estimate that I took from a research done in Berkeley in 2008, which tried to calculate the environmental impact of online advertising. As it was in 2008, online advertising changed a lot since then as well. So this is really an estimate, but it's a number because you have to start from something. So it's a number I use in most of the projects. because anyway, it's useful. The thing is that they calculated that if a megabyte was transferred through 3 and 4G networks, this number would be 3 to 4 times bigger. Yeah, and this is also something that is not really embedded in the social imagination. And I feel lately, in the last, especially 2-3 years, like the environmental impact of that, it's something that it's more obvious, but still I'm in shock on how not obvious it is yet. Yeah, this should be like, we know a car and an airplane are heavily polluting, but we have no idea that megabytes are as well. Yeah. This is a fantastic work that was done by Michael Saub. It's a German artist. It was published in 2009, where he tried to calculate the amount of coal needed to absorb the CO2 emissions, to generate the electricity needed to serve 1 million views of the Avatar trailer on YouTube. I remember, right, this Avatar? And this was quite massive. Yeah, and I think it was a very, very good way to broadcast this in many ways. Then I also, because this is 2 of my projects. I mean, I would love to go to the website, but I can't because it's a bit tricky. But I was really worried about the fact that the equation between data and environmental damage wasn't embedded in the social imagination at all. So I did these 2 projects. The first one I did in the left. This one I did in 2014. It's called CO2GL. So it basically calculates the amount of emissions derived from the global visits to google.com. And then 2 years later, because I was doing a project in the middle, I realized that I have a little bit of problems with numbers, because numbers tell a lot, but don't really tell anything. Nothing that you can understand as human. You know, we're made of flesh. So when you see numbers, which is in this case, numbers that are constantly growing up, yeah, it's like a counter that it just increases per second, all the emissions, they just go up and up and up and up. I didn't feel like I really understood what this meant, like 500,000 tons of CO2. Okay, great. I know this is a lot, but I have no idea what it represents for the planet. So I did this project with those are little trees, which try to reveal the amount of trees that we would need in order to mitigate the CO2 emissions derived from the global visits to google.com per second. It was about 23 trees per second. If you go to my website, you can access it right now. It's over there. It's called the forest. And I felt that this created like a much better impression. Because I feel it's quite, a lot of people that have seen it say that it generates quite a lot of anxiety. And you just want to get outside from the page as soon as possible, because we can relate to a tree, whereas we can't really relate that well to a number many times. Actually, for the first project, I think it's one of the hits of my life, like Google contact me. It's very hard to contact Google. There is no emails from Google at all. They're not public. It's the only public email, it's press@google.com. So the Kate Brandt, the sustainability officer from Google, contacted me in relation to this project because it went a little bit viral. And she kindly asked me to set the counter to 0 permanently because they were running on renewables 100%, which is a huge fallacy because Google, it just not operate in Google infrastructures. It uses the whole internet, and it also uses a lot of devices that they have no control whatsoever whether they are renewable or not. Yeah, so there is this fallacy that legally they can say that they are 100% renewable, they run 100% on renewables, but it's just a huge impossibility. They can't. Anyway, this was something interesting that happened to me in 2018, I think this was. So then also something, and especially it's important to mention, especially with the rise of 5G. So within 3G and 4G networks, a user generates in average 2 gigabytes a month. But with the appearance of 5G, a user will be able to generate 30 gigabytes of information per month. Yeah, and this is a massive growth, especially considering that the amount of devices connected to the networks are just increasing more and more. So we will need a lot of energy and a lot of resources in order to generate and keep all this information. Yeah, because when we talk about this, it gets exactly, this is just numbers. Okay, 2 gigabytes, 30 gigabytes, great. You know, I will just be able to watch much more Netflix. But this watching much more Netflix and anything we might be doing, it will represent a very heavy burden for our ecosystems, right? And we don't connect this. Well, this is just more data. It's like the amount of data that are crossing IP networks at the moment this year. Probably this was an estimation that was done prior to COVID, so I'm pretty sure we just surpassed this a big amount. Yeah. So the things like the more than 3 times the global population connected to the internet this year. So we're talking here that there is more machines, more devices than humans. And I think this talks a lot about a society where we are nurturing much more relationship with devices than the ecosystems that give us life. So we are much more able to understand technology networks than our own ecosystems. Just because we have much more relationship with them that we do have with nature at large, and probably with other humans for most people. Well, this is so Vladan. I think it's a great great intro to understand all the events that happen behind the interface. So this is a project that was done by ShareLab called the Facebook Algorithmic Factory. I really like this project. So can you see my mouse when I'm moving around? I'm maybe here now, right? Okay. So the thing is, ShareLab did like all this map of events that happen beyond the interface, right? So the interface, it's this part. Yeah, the only thing that we can access, we have access to. So the internet it's expansive, yeah, but we can actually just access it through interfaces, and we are absolutely blended to all the processes that happen beyond the interface, right? Which are massive. I mean, I couldn't even fit them up here, and this has a major environmental impact as well, and it's something that we don't have any access or we can't negotiate with. So last year I launched this project. It's called The Hidden Life of the Amazon User, in where I calculated the amount of code and megabytes and energy that it took me in my browser to buy or to make a very simple purchase of a book. I bought the Jeff Bezos book. That was something very silly, but I think it made my point. So the Amazon interface made me go through 12 different interfaces. Just I did the minimum steps required, nothing else. But the amount of code that was loaded in my computer was more than 80 megabytes. And I printed it for several exhibitions. It was almost 10,000 pages of printed code. Yeah, and the things like that, all the part of these processes were Vladan revealed in the other map, that they happen in our browser. So it's not that we are just being exploited by means of free labor, in terms that every action that we carry in our browsers, in our phones, is commodified and financially exploited by these companies. Yeah, so these companies basically, they take any piece of user activity and data that they can in order to acquire this data. And well, there is like different business models, but to say it in a very easy way, to sell it to other parties, yeah, and to benefit economically from it, in between many other ways of commodifying this. But that's the thing. So it's not that we just exploit it by means of free labor, in the sense that our online activity is just generating those companies' wealth, in this case, Amazon. But we also need to assume part of the environmental impact and, of course, energy consumption of it, without having a saying in it. So this project just tries to reveal this. It's just like a 14-minute scroll through all the code and interfaces that was loaded in my computer. Yeah, you can also feel free to go to the website. Everything is there, my website. So also there is something else, internet, which is much more evident, but it's also quite opaque, because I'm not sure. I mean, I went to visit a data center, but the data centers are not something that you just find in the next corner, right? So data centers are also very, very, very big buildings, very big entries. I call them data pantries. Like a regular data center would have a footprint of more than 10,000 square meters, but there is also like these hyper scale data centers that they are planning to build one in Dublin now. Amazon, I'm not sure if they did already or not, which is totaling 165,000 square meters, which equals to 24 soccer pitches, which is quite a lot. Yeah, and this is land and resources that are basically just used to keep data. Yeah, meaning that a lot of water is being used to cool down the servers. A lot of this usable land it's just used to host data. I think one day I made a calculation in 2017-18. I think like all the data industry or like data centers equal, I think, half of New York or something like that. Like it occupied quite a vast land, but I think it might be a lot bigger than this. Yeah, but we just don't know. This is a great example of stupidity. So Microsoft it's something that now, I'm not sure if they implemented, but it was an experimental project. And I think they are on the way to implement it now, to put data centers underwater. So one of the biggest problems of data centers is that they need to be constantly cooled down because they generate a lot of heat. And we all know that computers, they don't operate when there is like a high level of heat. That's it. So they decide to put the data center under the water. So they say, yeah, we're going to run 100% renewables because the water is going to cool down the servers. Yeah, and well, it's like, but they don't talk about the fact that the undersea world is going to be heated up, and the impacts that this is going to have for undersea flora and fauna, right? So they don't mention it at all in the website, and also their slogan is, well, 2%, no, 50% of the population in the world live in the shore. Why shouldn't data live there as well, or something like that, right? Yeah, right, makes total sense. So anyway, this is one of the examples. They also have undersea webcams that show how animals and data center are just coexisting peacefully and in harmony. Yeah, they make also jokes about this. Yeah, and well, that's what it is. There's also this paradox that I came across it, I don't know, a couple of years ago. It made me think a lot, and it's something that I didn't know. So it's in economics. It says Italian paradox: when technological progress or government policy increases the efficiency with which a resource is used. The problem is when a resource is more efficient, the rate of consumption or the demand of it raises exponentially. It means that this is not efficient anymore, because what it tried to prevent, it amplified at the end of the day. And even though this doesn't fully explain the energy crisis that we are facing and we're going to face in the future years, I think it's a great starting point to rethink our technological ecosystem in a completely different way. In the sense that I think we need to acquire a much more complex understanding of how things work and how the world works. Because the rhetorics of efficiency, when you see this paradox, it doesn't work. Yeah, and well, I think it's something worth mentioning. I still didn't articulate the full scheme of thought around it, but I think it's a great starting point. This is time. So when it comes to polluting and big IT giants, you see, like Amazon controls around 35 to 40% of the entire cloud computing market, and yet it's the most polluting by far. It's the one that took less care of being sustainable. Now they launched like a new sustainability office and blah blah blah. And they promise to be renewable by the year, I don't know when, but still up to the date. And this was published in 2009. They weren't at all. Yeah, it's one of the main hubs of the internet, Amazon. I mean, I think there was this article that every 3 hops you end up in an Amazon server, something like that. So it's really, really important to the internet, and yet it's really, really polluting and really, really non-sustainable. And then this is a funny thing. This is a GIF, actually. It's not going to play here, but you can find it in YouTube. So there is things was from 2017, where they even think about sustainability. Like there is Jeff Bezos opening this wind farm, I don't know, somewhere, I guess, in the US. Yeah, like breaking a champagne bottle there. But then 2 years later, this was in March last year. You can see like this advertising. It's called Fuel the Future, yeah, which is Amazon announcing a service for oil and gas industry at one of the major conference of fossil fuel industry in the US. Yeah, and so while they sell you like this face of sustainability and also want it to be sustainable and blah blah, they also heavily work with these companies. Yeah, it's like Amazon Web Services. Well, it's like the digital oil field of the future. They say that find oil faster, recover more oil, reduce the cost per barrel, reduce the risk and ensure compliance, and also basically dig faster and dig better. Yeah, and it's been working with major fossil fuel companies in the world, but it's not just the Amazon case. This is also the case for Microsoft. It's being also offering AI services to ExxonMobil, Chevron, BP, Total, Eni, and Shell. There is a great video that I really recommend seeing. Somebody explaining, I know this was from Google, somebody explaining how they use Google AI services to extract more oil, because Google is also open an energy division in 2018, and is actively working with Chevron. Now, I read somewhere that they said that they're going to stop working with those companies. But I don't believe them, truly. Yeah, I don't see why they went into it and now they would just withdraw just because it's not ethical or whatever. You know, they knew it wasn't ethical in 2018. So yes, now this I can't time. So while all these big companies is like sort of a think tank or organization that was mostly funded by Bill Gates, one of the main funders, which they advocate for reliable, affordable energy for the world, means that it's really pushing to full renewable energy agendas, investing in a carbonless future. It explained it. But then you see those companies that they are both working or investing in sustainable, make a lot of efforts to be sustainable and renewable, but they work with fossil fuel industry, and they also fund think tanks that deny climate change. Yeah, Google has been found to give money to this to the organization behind this pledge, and they say that our water is cleaner, both national, worldwide, everything is cleaner, everything is great, blah blah blah. Yeah. Also, well, and the thing is, when those companies are just working with fossil fuel industries, we see this list that the top 100 producers and the cumulative greenhouse gas, most of them are fossil fuel industries. Yeah, and this is far from declining when these IT giants are offering AI services to them, which is not, it's just amplifying and enhancing, even though we know that we are under a climate emergency. Yeah, so it is all this continuous and ongoing cynicism that is embedded at the core of all these industries. Yeah. And well, of course, and this is all about the most of the groups that are in charge to design all those strategies. This is all the engineers and that are in charge of this brilliant undersea data center by Microsoft. And this is not an exception of this particular project, but most of the engineers or people that are in charge to devise all these technologies, they are mostly men, white, and they come from an Anglo-Saxon context. Yeah, and this is something very, very important to also take into consideration, because there is a specific narrative embedded in this social context that these people represent. Yeah, and all these narratives are just being reproduced by the technologies that we use mostly. So I think I'm going to stop here because it's been 45 minutes already. Wow, that was long. So I will open the floor to, well, Des, if questions, answers. I'm not sure how you want to go on with this. So thank you.
Thank you, Joana, for taking us through this story. Some of the slides probably were a bit tiny.
Yeah,
so we
sorry.
But we had a few comments and questions. Some of them were answered whilst you were speaking, and I think Katrine asked about some data source for the Berkeley research, and we pointed her to your website, and also we added a few links to this Microsoft Natik project that you described.
Thank you.
And we had more comments, I think, from Vojislav Rodic, who is actually pointing to this new phenomenon in Serbia, where there is a story. There will be a lithium mine in Serbia, and I don't know if you are up to speed with that one.
I have no idea. It's great to know.
So there's some links in the chat room, but they were mainly comments, and we had no questions, but we certainly have time for questions. So I will, as you open up the floor, anyone could speak up and ask a question. And I also have one. Okay, lots of thanks. Yes, Catherine, go ahead and please ask your question and unmute yourself. It's not working. Petre, možeš da unmutuješ Catherine? Let me see. I would have to.
Mislim da ćeš morati ti početi prezentaciju. Možeš, nemaš opciju.
You can either make Catherine a presenter that may cut out Joana or promote her to moderator. So let's try this.
You can ask it in the chat. I can answer it. It's no problem.
Well, okay. So go ahead, Catherine, if you don't mind typing it in for a second until we solve this.
Well, the question is how feminist perspective to these issues can help. It's very complex because which feminist perspective and from where, you know, because these are coming play a lot of issues. I mean, we don't have the same perspective. We have a very white privilege perspective. Yeah, and yeah, probably we don't have an Anglo-Saxon perspective, which is something else. That's what's probably feminist movement in well, English-speaking countries, which of course they are the most privileged ones in the current social structure that we are living in. It's just different, right? And I think there's a lot of different feminisms, and I mean, there's something that irritates me quite a lot, which it's sort of like feminism will save the world in the sense that, you know, like to put the responsibility of feminism to fix patriarchy, it's the same way. It's just like, okay, the women will fix everything, right? So I think probably like for me, like the role of feminism is to acknowledge this. Yeah, that we don't have, feminism doesn't have to fix everything, and it can't and it shouldn't have the responsibility at all of doing it. Of course, it can propose things, but it's really complex because even as feminists, we are operating in systems and narratives that are very embedded or entangled with things that are bad, like colonialism, and we replicate a lot of those things even without wanting it. So I think like feminism can really help in generating awareness in a lot of things, by especially not looking at one direction, but proposing a much more holistic approach of things. But again, this holistic approach of things, it can be very biased from, and this bias can be determined from many, many different issues, which is geographical context, education, class, experience, and a lot of other things. So yeah, it's a lot of times people ask me this, but it's really, really hard. Anyway, I hope I'll answer sort of, or not answered.
I think it's a perfect plug-in to say that Catherine and Fritz and Helen will be having a workshop on feminist futures on Thursday.
Oh, nice.
Thursday. So there's still seats open. And
Catherine, Helen Pritchard?
Vincho, and yes, and Catherine.
Okay, great.
It's a 1-hour workshop and anyone can join, and you can then share and learn what Catherine also thinks if we're gonna move on now. So please check it out. It's on Thursday in the afternoon, local time at 5:30.
Yeah. Well, I would be interested in what you think about your own question, actually, because yeah, it's it's tricky. But you cannot speak because you are muted, so that's you see, that's a privilege, that I have now and you don't. So yeah, I'm sorry.
So I'm very sorry, but I think we will fix this soon. We had to mute the users and unmute them halfway through the room, and
okay,
we are very informal here.
There is another question.
Yes.
So Monica, I'm not sure I can see her, but you painted a black picture. Do you have ideas to step to address the issue? Stay with 4G instead of going to 5G, not using SOAP but other platforms. What are your ideas? It's also really tricky because I was discussing this with my students today. Same thing, what do we do? The thing is, I think the problem is like with the narrative of capitalism at large, which the idea of progress is just to keep on accumulating and accumulating and accumulating. Yeah? And following this logic, of course, 5G makes total sense because it will just allow us to keep on accumulating data and this infinite growth, which it's old news. It's just we know about this, right? And I think that a good friend of mine, the other day we have a talk together, and she said that it's very easy for us to spot what we don't like or we don't want, but it's very hard to understand what we want and how we want things. And I think that we are in a point where it's very, very hard for us to imagine alternative futures. I mean, our imagination is really, really constrained in many, many ways. And it's for us, even for me, I can't give an answer because it's very hard to articulate an idea of non-progress without meaning total apocalypse. And this is very problematic. It's very hard for me. And I think it's very hard for a lot of people. So I think we really, and I really like Helen, for example, that she's working a lot with fiction and so on. And I think there is something very valuable about fiction in order to re-articulate ways of thinking and imagining things. But it's a really, really tough exercise, I feel. But I don't believe the problem we face, it's not a technological problem. It's much more big than that. And it shouldn't be fixed by technology at all. It should be fixed by many other means, and which I'm not sure exactly which are those, but we should try to find out. Anyway, it's very complex questions. I'm sorry. I mean, I would love to hear any other input because I'm an only brain with my point of view, and so nobody else can speak.
So people can speak if they move their mouse to where the lock is in the browser, where you see live.descon.me. If you click on that, you should be able to get a pull-down menu and say allow microphone. So it should ask you for a mic and camera and sound. So if you joined in a listen-only mode before, that should let you unmute yourself if you want to try. I can try and share my screen to show it, but I think it's quite simple. Go to the lock in the browser, HTTPS lock sign, and a pull-down menu will give you a option to allow microphone, and then choose.
Then it will show you to reload and just join with the mic.
Then it'll show you to reload and just join with the mic. So try that if that one works. Good. We had more comments from Voya in the room about 5G and even 6G. We're hearing about 7 and 11G. It's not about expanding human interconnection, but machine-to-machine communication for industrial processes. And where is he going with this one? So there's no room left for human interaction, and I guess any kind of impact there. I was also wondering, and Joana, when you teach in Potsdam and Berlin, what do your students ask you? What's the way forward? Renewable energies apparently not the only answer.
No, not at all. Because also renewable energy is run on dirty energy, and it's very hard. It's really, really hard. It's what I answered to Monica. It's really about imagining other paradigms. That it's very hard for us. I repeat, for me, it's really hard to think about an idea of a society of non-progress without being a very traumatic and dark one. And I think that essentially this is a very big part of the problem. Because, we're just going there, and all the technologies that we are building, they might be more efficient in terms of energy use, but the problem is what the things that they enable. It's what 5G will enable. It's what 6G will enable. It will enable to produce much more data. It will enable to produce much more machines that will communicate with much more machines, and then will communicate with other machines that will do things, right? And we're increasingly left out of the picture, like we as natural ecosystems as well. And that's a problem. And it's what I said in my talk. It's really problematic that we are nurturing much more relationship with the machines that ecosystems that give us life right now, and we don't have a way or clue of how to reverse this trend. So yeah, they're very frustrated, but I tell them, well, it's really important to raise awareness and to understand the state of things, because we are understanding the systems that we are operating with and the systems that affect us and we affect. It's almost impossible to understand what can be done, should be done, could be done.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's why we're all here. We don't have the answers.
It's very frustrating, right? But I think it's okay. One single person shouldn't have an answer, because that's what's happening with these servers and with these people that you see on the screen. They have an answer, they apply it, and it's their answer. And they take it as the truth, and they're warming up the oceans by placing data centers down there, because that's the answer to sustainable data centers. So I wish that, they wouldn't have an answer, actually.
But certainly some regulation and, governments and measures should be more obvious to see the relations of where we are. Something more could be done, that people can't become aware, unless they start drinking so polluted water that it becomes unbearable. We seem to be being quite good in ruining quite a lot of nature and maybe parts of the universe. It's sad that we don't have any science fiction writers here now today, to think of some better futures. But we have a simple answer from in the chat. So Nenad Davidović seems to think that thorium salts as a new energy source instead of uranium is a way, and that is his answer to make energy from thorium. And some countries have more than others.
Yeah, the thing is, like, all the material means or energies to extract this, I'm not sure how this will play. Maybe thorium, it's easy, I don't know. But it's how all the industry needed in order to extract and generate value from this. I'm not sure how this would look like. I have no idea. I'm just, it's a comment.
Yes.
I'm reading.
So we have more comments about the speed of 5G and 6G from Voya, who's painting this machine-to-machine communication being more present than humans having any impact on how they're controlled, because they're parts of industrial applications. So we also, you can see the link.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'll check it out.
So anyway, we also have Balkan Beast Boy, who says that all energies based on resources will always lead to war, or is not energy, is it war that we need?
Well, for the quest of energy sources that are in foraging countries, I don't think, that's what war is about mostly. It's been like this since the creation of the first states, and we don't need it. That's how they decided to articulate it. I don't know. No, also all agree peacefully and harmonically. And of course, there is like, Europe is an example, and the world is like energy sources are being exchanged from one country to the other peacefully for now. But of course, there is like a happy power relationship in that arena as well.
Great. I think we have a few more comments on, but we have come to an end of an hour. So I just would like to give you a big applause.
Thank you.
Muted and unmuted. And thank you so much for sharing your ideas and views, no matter how utopian or dystopian, I would say, they are.
Yeah, they are a bit. But, I don't know. It just, I've been talking a lot about this with my students, about exactly dystopia, utopia thing today. It's hard. It's hard. It's a hard conversation. And it's a lot of time also.
Good. So, thank you so much, Joana.
Again, thank you.
Thanks for
taking a pleasure.
The journey, and lovely to see you. We will have maybe a physical 1-minute stop between you and the next presenter, and it's a great honor to also have Vladan Djaković, who is our next presenter, to talk to us about something that he has been working on. Last year, we had a CTO of Wire who gave a speech at Descon, and that's already, it's also privacy-related software, but Vladan will talk to us today about end-to-end secure voice on a low-power personal hardware. So he's been working and introducing this minimalist approach, and I'll let him upload his slides while I say a few more things about him. So let me make you a presenter whilst you can upload your slides. Vladan, think that will work for you.
Dobrodošli na Descon 6 online od 27. do 31. oktobra.
What I'm going to talk is about a new approach to security. And it has some parallels with the theme of the conference, and I want to touch on some of those parallels. And I want to explain how things basically come to the same meaning from very, very different directions. So in security, there's a lot of problems, and there are a lot of unsolvable problems. But there is inertia and business issues that keep these problems basically happening all the time. And what we are trying to do, we are trying to change this paradigm. We are trying to provide basically more security with less, actually significantly more security with less. So the thing with the theme of the conference is that while often the resources are spent and a lot of things are done not to affect the end, to affect the result that you want, but just because the business and inertia and people have interest in keeping things this way. This is true for many things. I mean, like Desiree mentioned, for energy, for other things, where too many things are spent without really achieving the result, or without achieving the result comparable to the expended effort. So there are similarities with that in security. So I'm going to give the explanation of what is the current paradigm, what we are doing. But before all that, let's just take a look is what is it that we are doing. So what we are making is a personal device for securing voice. It's a call talker. It's simple. Two people want to talk. They use call talker, which acts as a Bluetooth headset, and it connects to anything that the Bluetooth headset can connect to. And then you make a call and you talk. So it's extremely simple. It's a personal device, like your Bluetooth headset is your personal device. It connects to anything that you communicate with, like your phone, your tablet, your computer. And that's all you need to establish security. Your computer or smartphone are not involved in security. They're not even aware that it's happening. It's all embedded. It's all contained in the call talker, in the device. So how do you use it? Well, you connect it to your communication device, your smartphone or laptop or whatever, as a Bluetooth headset. So anything that takes Bluetooth headset is going to take call talker. You plug a wired headset in call talker. Why is this? I'm going to explain a bit later. There's going to be a version without this integrated version. Right now, you just plug a wired headset in the call talker, and then you make a call, and that's it. If the other side has call talker, your communication will be secured. If they don't have call talker, it's going to behave like a regular Bluetooth headset. This is the entire story. There is nothing more to that. There is nothing in the backend. There is no maintenance. There are no apps. There is nothing to install on your phone. Your phone is really not aware that anything's happening here. There are no updates, nothing. It's just the minimal thing that you need to have security. So what happens is that as the security is embedded in call talker, this is a red thing near the silhouettes on two far sides, on the left and right. The clear voice exists only between you and call talker. Everything behind the call talker, including your smartphone or your laptop or tablet and anything, all they hear is noise. All they hear is noise. So it doesn't really matter if your cell phone is hacked, if your laptop is hacked, if the backend of your provider is hacked, or your provider is doing something fishy, or somebody is listening to a communication line, you don't care about that. What they hear is something which looks like a human voice, but it's like a language which nobody except you two can understand. So it's safe. You don't care what happens to the external equipment. You don't care who is listening. It doesn't matter. What these people hear, they want to listen, it sounds something like this. I just want to play this for you, and you can hear what it sounds like. For some reason, it's not playing. So
Is it
much for
stuck?
that. Hold on a second. Okay. Let's try it one more time. No, for some reason the speaker is not playing. Maybe that's something fishy happening with the Chrome here, so we'll leave it for the other time. It doesn't work. To move on, the code talker, these are the prototypes we have right now. We are getting ready for production. It's a personal device for secure voice. It's small. It's self-contained. The first version is intended for the professional market, and that's what you're seeing here. And the suggested price is around $200. I'm not going to go to commercial anymore, but let me tell you about the consumer version. The consumer version is coming next. It's going to be half the price, and it's going to look like a regular Bluetooth headset. So it's all going to be embedded in the same form factor. And we're also thinking about doing some fashion items like chain watch or belt buckle, stuff like that. But basically, it's a Bluetooth headset. So these are the two versions that we plan on doing right now. So what did we do? We made this thing very small. So it's less than 30 grams, less than 1 ounce. It runs for hours on one rechargeable battery. And there is no comparable security device of this form factor and this weight, because security essentially is power hungry, it's CPU hungry, and it requires a lot of power. And this was designed, the code talker was designed from ground up to use less power, to require less CPU, and to be able to run for a long time on a small portable device on a battery, a rechargeable battery. So this is the first part of this minimalistic architecture. The second part is that there is nothing behind the code talker. So there is no backend. After you get it, you have no connection with us or anybody else. There is no infrastructure behind it. As it's self-contained, there is no backend, there's no maintenance, there are no updates. We expect lifespan to be more than 5 years. So again, this is, if you compare it to other security solutions, this is extremely small footprint. A small PCB, and I can show you what the PCB looks like. This is the actual PCB. It's very small. It's relatively low cost to manufacture, and this device is between 7 and 20 times cheaper than the next device that enables secure communication, like hardened smartphones and so on. It's 7 to 20 times cheaper. So there is less materials used, there is less basically maintenance, the less energy spent on the whole thing. The philosophy that we are guided with is, first of all, high security. Because the entire security is encapsulated in the device and it's not connected to anything, there is really no way to get to it. It only has analog connection with audio in and audio out. So there is no network connection, there are no co-tenant applications, there is no server that doesn't talk to anyone. So it's very hard to penetrate it. Remotely, it's, as far as we understand, it's near impossible. So the attack surface, which is the all the ways that you can attack some cryptographic device, it's really minimal. We believe that the only way to attack is to do cryptanalysis, basically try to recover the key. And that is very hard, and I'm going to talk more to that effect. The other part of the philosophy is that it has to be universally used. So Code Talker doesn't really use data links. It uses analog carriers. This is very important. Pretty much every single cryptographic device, they require a data link. They have a digital link to communicate together. And once you have digital link, you can recognize it. You can do all kinds of things with it. But then also you have to have it. So if you don't have a digital link, you don't have security, right? With Code Talker, it's different. We use voice as the transport for encrypted voice. So whenever two people can talk, then you can use Code Talker. Why is this important? Well, when you make a phone call, you pick up the handset and the other party answers and you just talk. You don't have to do anything special to start talking. You don't have to go through the firewall. You don't have to go to the net. The two people just talk to each other, right? It starts right away. The Code Talker uses the same transport. So if two people can talk, Code Talker can be used, period. There's nothing special. I mean, literally, the connection is literally analog. So as long as people can talk, and they talk the way they do, and that's not going to change anytime soon, the Code Talker is usable over that link. So is it radio or voice, telephone, whatever. Whenever two people can talk, you can use Code Talker. So basically, you cannot stop it. Because to stop Code Talker, you have to stop voice communications in general. And the whole transport, everything behind Code Talker, thinks this is a regular voice. They don't understand that this is encrypted. They're not involved in it. Let me touch a few things that I mentioned before, and that's about minimize the attack surface, or how did we essentially achieve high security. On the left side, I hope you can see that. Maybe you want to blow it up. There's a diagram that shows the current situation, and you have two people talking, A and B, say that you're using smartphones. So what is the problem here? Well, first of all, your smartphone is easily hacked. There is operating system you don't control. There are hundreds of apps that you don't control, and all of them are updated pretty much all the time. So there's no such thing as a secure smartphone. This is well known. They will never be secure. If you can see, C and F are parties who get access to your smartphone, so your communication stops being private. And then also in the middle, you have communication lines, and if you're using applications like Viber or Skype, whatever, they're backend servers, right? So those can also be accessed, and your communication can be extracted from them. So there are many things that can happen between two of you that make your conversation not private. What we did is something different. It's instead of trying to patch the problem and fix the problem, we just stepped away from the crowd. So we embedded all the security in the device itself, in the Code Talker, and CodeTalker attaches as a headset to your phone. So we don't care what's in your phone. We are not there. We don't care what's between your phones or on the backend servers, right? Our security is not dependent on that. It's entirely contained in the devices themselves. So basically, we avoided this congested, insecure terrain by stepping out of it. And by stepping out, you achieve a lot because you don't care anymore what happens to all these billion attack points that you have in between. All your security is embedded in a single device. I'll talk more about how this happens, but just to mention now is that the two devices exchange public keys. That they do key exchange is very traditional thing, nothing special about that. So basically, they exchange public keys, they create a shared secret, and they establish secure link between themselves. This is very standard cryptography. There is nothing particularly special about that. What is special and what we are unique in achieving is that we can use voice channel as a carrier for the encrypted voice. This is extremely hard to do, and pretty much nobody succeeded in that. There's a lot of signal processing, custom code to be written. This is not something you can stitch from the open source. This is all original code built from ground up. And just to recap the features, it's end-to-end privacy between the two devices. Effective key length can go over 200 bits. I'm talking about block cipher, so it's very secure. Works over any transport. Works with anything that can use wired over Bluetooth headset. So you can use it with your smartphone, regular phone, even laptops, tablets, radios, and so on. You can use it with any application that carries voice. Any, Skype, Viber, Signal, Zoom, whatever. We don't care. And that application can be secured itself. It doesn't matter. This is on top of all of that. And the encryption is self-contained. There's nothing outside the device. What I would like to touch now is go back to the original problem definition that I mentioned at the beginning, and touch a bit on the topic of what's wrong with what's happening right now. So the first thing, that's the traditional security has three major issues, and they're unsolvable. They have been proven unsolvable, and the reason they are going on, that everybody's complacent with this, is essentially business. So the first reason is complexity. There are millions of lines of code, tens of millions of lines of code involved in your smartphone, in your application app, in the operating system of your smartphone, in the routers, in the backend servers. There are millions of lines of code. And the number of bugs, errors per 100 lines of code is pretty much constant. It's constant. So there are several essentially bugs per 100 lines of code. That doesn't change, didn't change in the last 50 years, and it never is going to change. So what's happening is, as you find a problem, you introduce more code to fix the problem, and then you introduce more bugs, which eventually somebody's going to discover. What this means is that the flow of exploits, or 0 days as they call them, is assured, and they do flow. There is a constant, let me repeat, it's very important, there's a constant flow of 0 days. You can buy them, and a bunch of entities are buying them and using them when they need them, and then a few years later, somebody figures what they are, they patch it, but there's the next one waiting in line. So this is totally lost cause. The 0 days are available for anything, and they are there. Why do people pretend that this is not happening? Well, the business is the reason. So this complexity cannot be solved. It's physically, technically cannot be solved. It's an unsolvable problem. But there's a lot of money made in maintaining it. Then the next problem which is also unsolvable, is that when you use traditional security, you have to trust thousands of people and companies. You have to trust whoever made your phone, whoever made the app, whoever made other apps that you loaded in your phone, whoever made the operating system. So, if you think that somebody's make operating system, they keep updating that, right? How many thousand people are behind the company that maintains the operating system, right? Then you have backend servers with all the operating system and the code and companies that maintain them. So we are literally talking tens of thousands of people. When you make a call, you basically need to trust tens of thousands of people to be straight. And in this universe, that doesn't happen. So this huge amount of blind trust that you have to have makes basically the security non-existent. And the final problem with the current approach is concentration, which means if you have a point that hosts a lot of user accounts, a lot of information, and if there's one point that you need to attack to gain a lot, then such a point is very attractive as for attackers, right? They have to break only in one server, in one company, in one router, and then they get access to everything. They get access to all the accounts, to all the users and everything. So there's one thing they need to break. So as everything is breakable, right, this is how things fail. This concentration is a killer because this is how everything is hacked today, by attacking concentration points. So what did we do to go around this? Well, first of all, simplicity. There's a total of about less than 5,000 lines of code in entire code docker. We're talking about operating environment, drivers, application code, everything. So you can imagine that the number of bugs in 5,000 lines is 1,000 times less than the number of bugs in 5 million lines. So this is the best one can do. Just to simplify things, to avoid complexity. There's nothing better you can do because there are always going to be bugs. Of course, we do our best to remove all the bugs and we're not aware of any, but the point is that simplicity is your friend, especially simplicity is the friend of the security. And then you don't really have to trust anybody because once you get one, you have no contact with anybody that can access it. The cryptography is verifiable. There is going to be two ways to verify the protocol. So there's going to be software things that you're going to give to audit agencies that you can verify any of these that it is talking properly. So it's kind of easy to figure that out. And finally, there are no concentration points. This is totally distributed. If you want to attack hot docker, you have to attack each of them individually, and that is expensive. Basically, the attack would consist somebody snatching this from you, modifying it, and getting back in place. That's one kind of attack, and that's very expensive. If you are target of such a targeted attack, so somebody spends a couple $1,000 to attack your hot docker, then you have problems far beyond hot docker, right? So this is different realm. I just want to mention one thing. At the beginning, we said that there is a professional and consumer version, and consumer version is half the price and integrated and nice and tiny, and professional is like a small box which you plug the headset into. So what is the difference? Well, the professional version has discrete components. So peripheral modules, the radio and the audio interface are separate from the processing unit. And that gives you a bit more security because any Bluetooth radio can be hacked in about 10-15 seconds remotely. So if you have Bluetooth radio on your smartphone, your smartphone can be hacked from half a mile away. This is the fact. So because there's no way to change this, for the professional version, we consider the Bluetooth radio to be compromised, and the clear voice never touches the Bluetooth radio module. So that's the main difference between the professional and consumer version, is the professional version has discrete components, making it a bit more secure to targeted remote attacks. I mean, physical attacks from the vicinity. The consumer version has integrated everything integrated in a single chip, so it's less costly. The security of the code is the same; it's all the same. And again, I want to mention just one thing: if you are target of individual attack, your problems are far beyond Code Talker. So that's Code Talker in a nutshell. I'm sorry I couldn't play this damn thing. For some reason, I think Chrome snatched my audio here and doesn't want to play. Oh, here it is. So this is what whoever tries to listen to this hears. And so on. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Vladan, for showing us your Code Talker and also why you think this is the most secure and most private device out there. Let's open it up for the questions, and also maybe I could ask a first one and then come back if there's no other questions. My questions would be, what do you see as a major obstacle for wide adoption of products like Code Talker?
Well, one of the major problems is the way how security is marketed and sold and bought. So if you the security products, most people believe they don't have anything to hide, so they pretty much don't care, and there is a sentiment that which many security companies are sending out, is that all these evil people listening to you and you should protect yourself. That's the wrong approach, we believe. So we want this to be a mainstream product, like the Bluetooth headset with additional feature, and privacy is a well-known issue right now. So the problem for adoption, for wide adoption, will be will consumers be willing to get this thing, and maybe no additional cost or slight additional cost over the regular Bluetooth headset? What is the sentiment? What is the sentiment that they have? Are they going to feel that they are behaving like criminals because they're hiding their conversation, or is it going to be normal? I don't have an answer to that, but I think this is something that we need to solve. This is the main thing we need to solve, is to explain that privacy is can be regained with very low cost or no extra cost. And the point of privacy is not that you have something to hide. The point of privacy is that it's inherent to the civilization as we knew it. And there are many good things come when you have basic privacy of conversation, as opposed to universal data collection and all that stuff. I can talk about that, but this is not such kind of talk.
Yeah, thank you, Vladan. We're having more questions coming in the chat. I hope the US gets their privacy law. There were some talks about that. Maybe it would be easier. So I think we have one from Goran Mekic. Does verifiable security by any chance means formally proven? And if it is, did you publish that proof?
There is no formal proof of cryptography doesn't exist, period. There is no formal proof that RSA is secure. There is no formal proof that AES is secure. Formal proofs of security do not exist. So unfortunately, there can be no formal proof. It just doesn't exist. The best thing one can do, so how do we know that something is secure? Well, you don't really. I mean, to be quite honest, it's impossible to know, because in cryptography, there is one constant, and that is that there is a time lag for about 20, 30 years between the time something is broken and the public learns about that. So this is constant thing. Just to mention, one example, the famous example of that is that during World War II, Alice broke the German Enigma cryptographic machine, which Germans used to communicate with submarines. And Turing was involved, and they broke it in London, in Bletchley, so they could listen to German communication. So, of course, they were aware if Germans knew they broke it, Germans would change it, right? So what Alice did, they actually let submarines sink some ships. They and then they had the scout planes accidentally discover submarines. So submarines would think they were accidentally discovered by a scout plane, not by basically knowing where they're going to be, because they could read the communications. When the Germans found out about this? They found out about this in 1967. 20 years after the war, and they still didn't believe it. Okay, so this is constant. And so basically you don't know that something is secure. It depends, it's all the balance, right? If something is not known to be broken, or everybody's using that, and you're a small fry, you're kind of safe that nobody's going to use this against you, because they don't want to give out their hand for a small target, right? The other thing you can do is constantly change the way you encrypt. The current philosophy, actual ideology, or should I say indoctrination in cryptography, is very sinister. It's extremely sinister. And it's very conducive to snooping. In World War II, Germans, Enigma was a mechanical device. They modified Enigma during the war 3 times because they were afraid somebody is going to listen to it. So they kept changing that. Changing mechanical device is very expensive. Distributing changes is very expensive. And they did it in very hard times during the war 3 times, right? What the indoctrination we have today in cryptography is that you should never make your own cipher. You should use only the proven ciphers. So what do we have? We have 4 proven block ciphers, and they're all old, like 10 plus years old, 10, 15 years. And we have 4 widely used public schemes. They're also between 10 and 30 years old. The total number of people that designed these 8 ciphers is 25. In the meantime, in the past 20 years, there are about 100,000 mathematicians in various agencies working around the clock breaking these things. So it is a certainty that all these ciphers are broken. It is a certainty. They've been broken a long time ago, and we just don't know about that. I mean, it's a brain against brain. You can think a brain of 25 people that designed these 8 ciphers and 100,000 brains working basically full time on breaking them. So there is no way they're not broken, right? If you take a look at what governments do today, and this is well known, no self-respecting government is ever going to use any of these. They always make their own, and they have a good reason for that. National Security Agency themselves never, ever in any of their devices will use any public scheme, right? So that's the situation today. Code Talker has some novel elements, so it's not something you can break by, using one of these breaks. And we can, I don't want to talk about now, but we do have some special stuff there. And, it can be modified. So the best you can do is to keep changing what you do and make it very expensive for the adversary to cryptanalyze. So let me take a look at the other. Yes, we are going to have it audited, definitely. I mean, that's definitely something we want to do. We're looking at candidates for audit. Audits are always good. You find things that you missed. So I want to touch about the question from Nana. How do you sync two devices to understand each other? Well, we do Diffie-Hellman key exchange. So it's a standard public cryptography thing. You have two parties. They have insecure line between them, and yet they can establish secure link. Basically what they do, each of them sends their public key to the other side. Everybody hears the public key, but by the magic of Diffie-Hellman and elliptic curves, these two parties can create shared secret which nobody that heard everything between them can recreate. So they have the unique shared secrets which they use to encrypt the communication. This is a standard thing. We didn't invent it. It's used pretty much everywhere, in your browser, everywhere. This is a very standard thing. So that's how we do that. Let me see other questions. Okay, there's a long one. So we're not. So the question was, what if somebody with enough knowledge gets the device and reverse it? The device making handshake will self-generating keys on every call, or is it something that is already built? Okay, so this is a very good question. So first of all, the device is not secret. There's nothing secret about the device. I mean, cryptography by secrecy is, it's a bad deal. So there's nothing secret in the device. We don't care if somebody reverse engineers it. There's no danger from that. What these devices do, they generate keys for every call, and the keys are generating by two ways. First, we use the random number generator, which is present on the processor chip, but we don't really trust it. So we also use the microphone, and remember, this is a communication device, so microphone is plugged in most of the time. So we use external noise from the microphone and mix it with the random numbers from the random number generator to generate keys. This is very hard to reverse. Very, very, very hard to reverse, because we do collect a lot of entropy from the sound and from the RNG inside and mix them, right? I just want to mention one more thing, which I didn't. We have a way to do authenticated communication. Basically, what you do, you bring two code talkers together, you connect them with the cable, and they exchange their long-lived certificates. And then you separate them and go away, and when they talk, if they recognize each other's certificate, you're going to have authenticated communication. In other words, you will hear who you're talking to, and you will know that it is that device, right? So I can go at length about the difference between authentication and privacy, but we have both. Anything else?
So I think we're getting one more question being typed by
Okay.
Nenad. No, you can see it's a game changer. Thank you very much. It's not a question, it's a comment.
Okay.
And I think it would be nice to know, since we're going to have a talk tomorrow by our inventor, ex-U inventor, Vladan Djaković, how difficult it is to make hardware versus software, and when are we gonna see Code Talker, and does it have to scale in a big way in order to make you happy or the company happy, or are you going to produce small units, or is there a plan?
It's very well with hardware. It's very simple. You make a thing, you manufacture it, package it, sell it, and people give you money. So that's the whole business here, right? Hardware business is a good business. Hardware is hard. So let me just tell you, this thing has been in development for about 2 years. We are 6 people now, and we went through a bunch of revisions of the PCB. We have the final candidate now. So this is hard. Software, I mean, the firmware for this thing was even harder. It took a long time to get everything right. So there was a lot of effort put into this. But once you do that, you sell a piece of, you sell an object, and this is very, very well-defined kind of business. So yes, we just want to sell a lot of these. The market projections look pretty good. The Bluetooth headset market is about 5 billion, and around 180 million Bluetooth headsets are sold every year. So if you get only like 5% of that market, because you have 2 Bluetooth headsets, right? They're both Bluetooth headsets. One has this extra feature, the other one doesn't, and they cost pretty much the same. So which one are you going to buy, right? That's the thing. So we believe we can get a significant fraction of that market, and that's where the real money is. I didn't catch that.
I believe, yeah, you have another question from Monica Ahmed. If I heard correctly, the voice scream sounded like scrambled. Can you elaborate how that is done?
I really don't want to go into details right now. We have IP issues and patents around this, but I will say this. We use a combination of very modern cryptography, elliptic curves, and we use some very retro cryptography, which we brought to a next level by using modern CPUs. And that's how we got to where we are. So yes, the voice sounds scrambled. It is. We of course did the cryptanalysis. We have papers on this thing, and again, we believe that the key is very long, but basically it's a combination of a retro cryptography and modern CPUs, and it can do some amazing things. This has been tried before, but essentially it's so hard to do that pretty much everyone failed. No, not pretty much everybody failed, right? And we learned from that, and invested a lot of time to get to where we are now. And eventually, so let me make sure the one thing should be understood. Nobody is going to buy a cryptographic device with secret cryptography. That's not going to happen. So once we get to the market, everything will be known, because there is no way. I mean, I would never buy something that has a secret cryptography, right? That's not going to happen. So all these details will be eventually published. It will be known exactly what we do, how we do it, and so on. So that is going to come out. It's not the day-to-day. We would not expect anybody to buy a device with a secret proprietary, with the secret cryptography. That's not the case.
Thank you. Thank you, Vladan. So I think the last thing, you're getting a lot of questions. Obviously, there's a lot of interest. Is there any way you could compare how does the protocol work, and does it have anything to do with the SS7 or the signal?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with it. So it's not digital. Again, we use voice line as a transport. So everything that we send has to sound like a voice. What is the hard thing about that? Well, the hard thing is that today's voice lines are heavily compressed, and they have a bunch of codecs in mind. And these codecs are tuned for human voice. So anything that doesn't have the characteristics of human voice, and we're talking phonemes and basically the way people speak, is not going to go through. So if you want to push something through these stateful codecs between 2 points, it has to have characteristics of human voice. That's what you heard, right? If it doesn't, it's not going to go through. You cannot use modems on these lines because modems try to send signal that just doesn't go through. Okay, so what you have to send has to sound like a voice. That is the difficult part, right? So now the question is, how do you use voice as a carrier for encrypted voice, right? And that's where this retro cryptography came in, and we use some of that, which is basically pre-World War II cryptography, right? But then it was one thing, and now it's with modern CPUs, it's totally different story. So we use some elements of that and combine them with the very modern stuff that we have, and came up with a system which we believe is more secure than anything else.
Thank you for that additional explanation. And do you have to buy a pair?
It's a good question. Probably we will definitely have option to buy in pairs for the first product, which is the professional markets, so you can give it to somebody you want to talk to. For the consumer headset, no, because everybody has a Bluetooth headset, and you can use it as a regular Bluetooth headset. Is it going to make sense to sell in pairs or no? I don't know. We will have just to do market research. So yeah, selling in pairs is definitely an option.
Thank you. Great. I think we're getting to the end of the hour. Thank you so much.
If I may abuse this auditorium, I'd just like to know, for my feedback, how many people would buy this?
How many people? I didn't hear that.
How many people in the audience would buy this thing?
Would buy this one?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yes. How many people would buy?
One here with me who said he'll buy one.
Yeah. So the consumer is $100. Okay. We have ordered for two. $100. The consumer is $100.
Okay, we have a poll here, so we can ask the question in a poll, but I would, so you're getting some offers here, $5, $10, $30, $5,000, and the battery life. What's the battery?
It's at least 5 hours of talk time.
And music quality?
It's not hi-fi, let's put it that way. It's not meant to be hi-fi. It's a Bluetooth headset profile. It's not hi-fi.
Okay. All right. How do we do this poll? I think, is that enough feedback? We have one person here raising their hand, and anybody else in the chat room? There's some thinking going on, asking where's the poll?
I don't know where is the poll.
Buy one, get the other one you need for free. It's they're trying to help you market this. Okay. I don't know when did you join the room? He says not enough details to make a decision, but he's interested in knowing more. How could they find out more? Going to your website or?
Yeah, they can go to the website, they can contact me email.
Yeah. So, one user said $100 is okay, but 2 devices is minimum to have a conversation. So
yeah, so let me just explain something. This professional version is going to retail for $200, and what it's competing with are hardened smartphones. So there is a market for hardened smartphones. It's about $5 billion a year, and the unit cost is between $1,500 and $4,000. So we are essentially offering better security for 7 to 20 times less price. This is the market for the thing you're seeing on the screen. This is the professional version, and it's going to compete with devices which cost between $1,500 and $4,000. That's the reality of that. The consumer version is going to compete in Bluetooth headset market, like high-end Bluetooth headsets, and it's going to be around $100. So it's not going to be free. It's going to be $5. If you want a Bluetooth headset, you have to pay money. If you have a good Bluetooth headset, you have to pay a lot. So that's what it is.
Okay, you have a few more. We'll take them.
The device is inherently person-to-person. You can always, this question has been asked. So the question was, can you use it for multi-party conversation? You can always extend the protocol to have multi-party conversation here. We didn't do it at this time because we are targeting person-to-person market. But in theory, yes, you could have multi-party with the same protocol. There's nothing special about that. So, for example, right now, we are all in browsers, we all have secure connections, and we all hear each other, right? So it's not a big deal. Let me see other questions. Who uses voice for IoT? Well, humans use voice, touch, and smell as a communication. Everything else is not human. Wasn't it said that this wasn't great if you were, if you're specifically targeted, if somebody is after you, then Code Talker is not your problem. You have much bigger problems with that. If you're specifically targeted by anybody, they're going to get to you. No piece of hardware or software is going to protect you, right? So the point is that there is no such thing that's going to protect you from specific target. It doesn't exist. But because a specific targeting you with somebody in your vicinity, basically sending a guy to hack you, right, is very expensive. So if somebody wants to spend $5,000 to hack you, then that somebody has a lot of interest in hacking you, but that's not scalable. They cannot send it to everybody, right? So specific targeting is totally different realm. Just a tool to keep. Well, it's this thing, the mass use of this thing basically stops general surveillance in its tracks. With this thing, it's impossible to do capture and real-time analysis of millions of calls as it's being done today. So this thing does solve the surveillance problem in a big way, but that's a different story. There was a question mentioned the hardware phone. There is no such thing as a secure phone. They don't exist. It's a myth. So hardware phone is a marketing term. No phone is hard to break in. This is a different level of security. You can put everything on the phone. I mean, If you use Skype or WhatsApp, whatever, they do encrypt, right? So if you're okay with that, that's fine. But WhatsApp was hacked. It was hacked a couple of months ago. And all of them are hackable because WhatsApp was hacked by another application running on the same phone. So this is a losing game. We are doing something totally different.
Do you need some help in reading the comments, or are you fine?
No, I'm good. It's just that I put it in big screen and the type is really, really small, so I had to get close to the screen because I'm not using my laptop. I use the screen, the big screen over there. So. Yes, so this is I want to get back something. So people are talking here a lot about applications, like commercial entities that run some applications, like Facebook Incorporated or Google Incorporated, and they run some things for their own benefit, and people talk about using that. This is not about it. The philosophy of the company is this. You can talk, you can hear, you can see, and you can touch, and you can do things with your fingers, right? So this is your physicality, right? On the other side, there is a network out there, and you have these devices like phones or computers, whatever, and they do different things. And the security today belongs to the network. It belongs to these people who tell you, hey, we're going to make you secure, whatever. What we are doing is something different. We are putting the shield between you and the network. So for network, you are normal human. You're not talking encrypted. This is the whole point. So network thinks there's nothing special happening, but through this shield, your communication is not understandable to anything, including the network, right? So on one side, you own your security. On the other side, the network you interface it as a regular user. And network is not involved in security. They think you're a regular user, right? So this is the big deal here, is that you do not depend on these contraptions to give you security. And we are so used to that you don't even think in this way. You don't even think who owns which company and who runs that for which benefit, right? Because people gave up, right? They gave up. Here we are getting back to this and say, hey, no, my communication what I say is going to be secure, and I don't care what's there, right? And whatever is there is going to think I'm talking normally, but actually it's Klingon. They can't understand any of that, right? So the first product we have is for voice. The second product we're going to have is going to be for video. So it's going to be the same principle. There's going to be some form of glasses and something that you put in front of camera. So for Skype, so you're on Skype, right? And there's a video going on. But whoever is listening to that, they see just noise on the screen, right? But if you with these glasses can see what's actually out there, right? So it's the same principle. We are pulling in the security to the personal level for ears, mouth, eyes, right? That's what we're doing. What is application of there is totally relevant. It's a different world. It's a different level of things, right? We are encrypting between you and the rest of the world. And what do you use, Facebook or whatever you use, it's irrelevant. These are just things which parasite on this big network that's out there. Let me see more questions. Okay, they're going too fast. Would it be possible for manufacturers to prevent use of device? Very hard. And this is why. Because what goes through has characteristic of voice. So what would they have to do? They would have to analyze the voice in real time and decide what is human voice, what is not. And the only way to do that is to do actually voice recognition. And you have to do it in particular language, right? So yes, you could stop this if you do voice recognition. And if you can recognize voice, you can let it through. If you don't recognize it, you just stop it, right? That you cannot do on smartphone. There's too much CPU involved in this. It's going to be so error prone, and people will be so pissed because they will mistakenly be stopping others. So stopping this, I don't think is an option. Is there an error that the network cannot listen? No, network listens to rather than a specific third party. No, network listens to everything. I'm not sure I understand the question. Disable the built-in microphone. No, you're not. You don't want to modify any equipment outside. But if you don't trust your phone, you should probably, put the. You should probably disable its microphone. Again, there are levels of security, and if somebody hacked your phone and somebody listened to you, it was probably targeted attack, and that's a different kind of thing. Some of them I don't really understand. Would this device use some shared key rotation policy? No. So once the share has been negotiated, it will stay like that. No. We have what's called forward security, perfect forward security. So these shared secrets are used one time and then destroyed. So there is no way, even if you get somebody's code talker at a later time, there's no way you can recover keys from previous conversations. So we have the forward secrecy taken care of. Yeah, so the question is why do we trust silicon? We don't trust silicon, but the silicon we use is minimal, and there is no space there to put something clandestine. We are not even using CPUs. We use what is called MCU, microcontroller unit, right? It's not even CPU. So these are very small things, and they're sold in millions. And there is really no way to put something clandestine inside. It's not like a big ARM CPU with millions of gates where you can sneak in things. These things are extremely small. They're extremely small, and they're price sensitive. So even if they put something there, so the only thing you can really subvert it is to subvert the random number generator. That's the only way you can do it, right? You subvert random number generator. But like I said, we are using microphone input to mix it with random number generators. So I'm not sure how would adversarial silicon affect us. I don't see the vector there.
I think we would probably have to stop now if there are no more questions. You have one more from Balkan Beast Boy. What microcontroller Z80 and PIC? And he didn't understand.
It is actually it's one of Microchip's products. So yes, it's a popular microcontroller.
Okay, I think the best thing would be for you to send your email in the chat if we can share your email or something.
Sure.
So we can continue talking to you if you don't mind typing it in the public chat room, because there seemed to be a lot of interest.
I'm typing it right now, okay? So here it is.
Okay. And so you have it.
Okay.
And, thank you so much, Vladan. We'll do poll of that. And with that, we are ending our today's session today with our both talks, and tomorrow we start again. And I'll just ask Milica to share the screen if she can. If you're interested to come back tomorrow, we have a talk with Voja Antonić, the inventor of Galaxia, but he'll be talking about something different than Galaxia. He'll be speaking about how to start from an empty paper and how to be creative. Yeah, so I said we'll also, after Voja's talk, we will have a talk by Ryan Polk from the Internet Society about greening the net and what his take is on in terms of technology and the environment. And then I'd invite everyone who hasn't been to a crypto party before to join us to a crypto party. We'll have breakout rooms, and you can learn how to protect yourself better using passwords. And that's organized by the Crypto Party RS, joined with the ISOC Belgrade chapter and the Hack Club Belgrade. So hope that you'll get your email again. Keep your passwords for the login. And it's been a wonderful day and a start so far. So I'll stop the recording now. Bye now.